909 Big 550 KTRS. And the board meeting continues with a brand new contestant today. We spun the wheel and we landed on Chad Garrison, the reporter from the Riverfront Times. Good morning, Chad Garrison.
Good morning.
You've been on the show numerous times. This is your first foray into the board meeting, so we'll hopefully you'll be back for weeks and months and years.
God willing.
God willing. Jane Duker, ladies and gentlemen, political consultant, all-around gadfly, local attorney, former chief of staff to Governor Holden. Good morning, Jane Duker.
Good morning.
John Deal, House representative, won his race, and he is the speaker designee. John Deal Jr., welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Hey, thank you. Good to be here.
Let's start with you, Jane Duker. Let's talk about what we know, what we don't know, and what about the release of this information. What can you tell us? What do you know? What do you think you know? And how do you think this is all going to turn out?
Well, I mean, I think overall the first important thing is, obviously tensions are extremely high. But, I mean, it seems to me that the only real source of when the grand jury is going to announce is Bob McCullough.
Right.
I mean, I think, you can't look at social media. You can't have a conversation at work or anywhere, at the store, anywhere, without people speculating, well, I know a guy. But, I think, one, it's not helping, and two, there's one source.
But do we know, is he going to say, when they come back with a decision, is he going to say at noon tomorrow? Is he going to give us 12 hours, 5 hours, 24 hours, 72 hours, or is he just going to announce it?
First of all, I think he's probably, I would be shocked if he's not going to let, relevant authorities know and allow the police, allow officials to sort of respond in an appropriate way. But do I think that they're going to go on and tell everybody, hey, we're going to give you 8 hours notice so that everybody from all over the world can come to, descend upon St. Louis and do things? I mean, I think that it's very unlikely that they're going to roadmap exactly what they're doing. Do I think that they will let appropriate people know and they know that there needs to be, a response that's coordinated? Absolutely.
Right. But once the word starts to leak out to those officials, it's going to leak out to everybody.
Yeah, and I think it's unrealistic to think that if you've got, okay, so let's say, you're married to a police officer and you're told, hey, you're going to work for 3 days. I mean,
right.
There's going to be situations where so I'm quite sure that they're aware of how that's going to happen. And so it's people are going to know, I think, when they know, and people are going to know that, this is it.
John Deal, what are your thoughts?
I would have to imagine that Bob McCullough at this point knows what the end game is and knows what the timetable is going to be. And I think there's probably a plan in place, as Jane pointed out, to make sure that the response and the first responders to this have some lead time to do that. But, it's just like this whole situation from the beginning, right? You have all these agitators and all these commentators and pundits and all this. Everybody's an expert on this. Everybody knows what happened at the scene. Everybody knows what the grand jury is or is not going to do, and everybody seems to know when the decision's going to come down. I get approached, well, I hear it's going to be Thursday or it's going to be today. So how do you know? Well, I read it on the internet.
Well, Twitter.
Okay, or Twitter or whatever. So I would hope that those in charge of this recognize the significance of this, and I think it's going to be fairly structured on how it's rolled out.
And remember, though, it is still a grand jury. I mean, in the sense that when a jury gets a case, normally, they may take longer to deliberate. They may not automatically agree. They may, if they want to see more evidence, or because they're allowed to say, hey, look, I want to talk to so and so, or I want to re-see this piece of evidence, or I want to know more about this. Go find out.
So no one knows because they don't know.
Well, they're either done or they're not done. I have a feeling that, obviously the prosecutor's office is going to be probably the first one to know when they're actually done. But you can't assume that they're going to say, okay, we're going to be done at Friday at 5 o'clock. They're going to be done when they're done.
I think Friday at 5 o'clock might be an excellent time to release the decision. That seems to be when the powers that be usually release, news that they think is bad. Yeah.
I don't think this one's going to hide on a Friday.
No, I think on this one you don't want on a Friday. Maybe a Sunday afternoon after a foot of snow.
I think that to the point of if they're going to give people a heads up. I've asked the prosecutor's office a couple times now. How much lead time are you going to give?
Right.
And they've said, as of just last week when I asked the spokesperson for the prosecutor's office, that those details are still being ironed out. But I have a sense that it's going to be. I think it's going to be before Thanksgiving. I think that it's going to be, it could possibly be tomorrow. I was kind of thinking it might be today, but again, I'm speculating as well as everyone else.
But again, it's a decision you can't hide.
No,
so
it's not. Happen.
People keep saying Sunday, like Sunday's some magic day. The quick
Sunday
trip burned down on a
before-
Sunday.
Well, but the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and you can rationalize anything.
Right,
trust
right.
me. But Sunday before Thanksgiving, then if there are demonstrations and things, you sort of think, well, maybe there would be an end date because of Thanksgiving, and you know what I mean, and there would be sort of a logical end point, or do you want to do it after so that you can? You hear the speculation.
Right.
Black Friday.
But the reality is, the
you know,
people that are going to come burn things down don't care whether it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Right.
Thanksgiving Day, or Friday, and so I think you're right, McGraw, in the sense that we just don't know yet. But on the grand jury process, there at some point the evidence is over, and at some
Right.
point they're going to go to that grand jury and say, make your decision. If they know, okay, we're going to ask them on tomorrow, Chad, for your case, make your decision tomorrow. I think it's something they can keep under wraps within that process for a day or two.
Right.
until
And the
it
judge has
leaks
to
out
sign off on
what
it, so there's a
does.
process there.
Right.
And they decide. So what people don't understand is the grand jury is not sort of like a normal trial where you stay until you're done and nobody leaves, and sometimes you're sequestered. The grand jurors say, okay, when's the next time we can all get together? I mean, it's not sort of this, traditionally I think
Right.
we've heard they've been doing it on Wednesdays, but they decide, okay, this is how much time we're going to need. Is everybody available? And so there's some planning that goes on there.
All right. In terms of planning, Governor Nixon, John Deal, was asked who was in charge by the Huffington Post and gave an answer in which people are still trying to decipher. You need the Rosetta Stone to figure out exactly what he said vis-a-vis the rambling sentence of Governor Nixon. Why is it that it was so hard to answer the question, who's in charge?
That baffled me. Someone sent me that link when it came down. At first, I thought it was some satire site of past ramblings that
Right.
he did. That
They
were kind of
edited
cobbled
together. Yeah.
And then, you just declare a state of emergency. Then you go on radio interviews to talk about the state of emergency. And then you're asked a pretty basic question. What does this mean? Does this mean you're in charge? And can't answer it. I think it's a question that most good leaders, I think, can answer in their sleep. I can't necessarily control the outcome, but I'm in charge of the response. And as far as the response is going to concern, we have a lot of good people looking at it. We're going to make the best decisions we can make
Right.
based upon the information that we have, and it's going to be a fluid situation, but I'm on top of it.
Do you want to run for governor?
No.
Jane Duker, you have been in the governor's office.
Yeah.
You have to. What was going on with that? How can this man not answer this question 3 months into this?
I don't know that it was a matter of I don't want to affirmatively. I think he genuinely froze up. I think he genuinely was sitting here going, okay, what can I give away? He's got this whole law enforcement thing in his head, which he's sitting here going, okay, am I giving away anything? It sounded like somebody who, hadn't really sort of thought it out. And it was like, okay, I don't want to say anything that's going to screw something up. And you know what I mean? It was almost like this lock up, freeze up, and so.
But the question wasn't, what's your strategy? The
I
question is,
understand.
are you in charge?
I
You
get you,
declared
but
a
I
state
think
of
he
emergency.
just sort of locked down.
I don't
Nobody
understand
goes
the-
that bad
yeah.
without a full lockdown.
Chad.
I don't know. I mean the his stammering is baffling on that topic because why wouldn't he be in charge? What's he have to lose? He's not up for re-election. I don't know if he's thinking about long term. What if this comes back and sullies his reputation somehow? But ultimately, he is, as you mentioned, the one who put together the state of emergency, and I think ultimately.
Yes.
He has to step up and say he's in charge of this. And I don't know, I don't quite understand what he has really to lose by saying he is.
But he has been through this whole thing. He's been vacant. He hasn't come and talked to people. He hasn't been readily available to answer any questions. And so in a crisis like this, you need leadership, and he's nowhere to be found. Mayor Slay is nowhere to be found. Charlie Dooley, somebody put out an APB for him because he hasn't been home. So in terms of leadership, when we need them the most, they are nowhere to be found.
Well, and that's why it seems to me that it's this whole I'm going to play not to lose, and I'm going to be so careful about what I say that I'm saying nothing and I lock up. I mean, I don't think, I mean, I've known, Governor Nixon for 20-something years. He's a good person. He wants to do the right thing. I think, I think he genuinely locked up, and when you're so, I guess, programmed to be worried about not getting your head chopped off. And guess what? No matter what you do in this situation, it's not going to be, people are going to be mad. There's no easy wins here. If there was an easy win and an easy way and a clear path, everybody would be doing it, wouldn't they?
But that's why we elect leaders.
I know.
For the difficult times.
I understand.
And it's also about planning. So if you're going to be the guy who's in charge of planning the response, don't you also get out there? You were inside the governor's office, and I know we do this in my office. Before you do a press conference, we sit down and say, okay,
you walk it through. I know.
What could I get asked here, and what are my responses? It's part of what you call planning.
Right.
And, when I did my opening day press conference, okay, here are 3 or 4 bad things people can ask me. How do I answer or respond to it?
Right.
Yeah. And it just doesn't.
It reminded me of.
How did they not prep for this?
I don't know.
He actively sought this out to go explain that I am taking a leadership role.
Well, and the other question is the week before he says we're ready to go. Are you going to call a state of emergency? I don't know. It depends. Nothing happens. A week later, he arbitrarily decides to call a state of emergency, and then has this phone conference in which this verbal diarrhea comes out.
It reminded me of, I don't know if you ever watched the Brady Bunch when you were little, but do you remember
Baton Rouge, Cindy, Baton Rouge.
That one episode where they turned the camera on and Cindy Brady just, I mean, that's what it reminded me of, was the camera light went on and it just,
what's interesting?
He froze up.
Well, that was actually like the press conference he did when all this was going down the first time. Right. When he had all the activists in the room.
Actually,
that was the blame.
He's more like Kevin Bacon in Animal House. You must remain calm. You must remain calm.
I mean, yeah, it was. It was a rough.
I don't think about those vis-a-vis me. Though.
I don't like to think about things that I don't think about.
Well, and I would have liked to have heard. I would personally would have liked to have heard that before he issued the state of emergency, that he would have had a discussion with the prosecutor's office.
Well,
I
they're
think
clearly not talking.
That sort of coordination to me seems.
How about the fact that Nixon doesn't stand up with Dooley or Slay or any other elected official?
Well, no, he did. That's who he had been standing with. That's who he's had all the press conferences with. Has been Slay and Dooley. Absolutely,
he has not.
Absolutely, he has. He hasn't stood with. I mean, Koster or McCaskill or McCullough.
Go back and look. He stood with the police. And then Dooley and Slay had their news conference.
Oh, you mean this last time? But before this, they've all been around. And Francis was the one who got up and sort of talked about
the first one he had. The first one he had Lacey Clay there, who proceeded to stand up and tell everybody to take to the streets.
The one up in Ferguson where he answered one question that I asked him and then was shot down. All right, Chad Garrison is here from the Riverfront Front Times. We've got attorney Jane Duker and John Deal Jr., Speaker of the House. More in a moment. Big 550 KTR.